The next bend we're going to do is called a handlebar crossover. Obviously, it looks like the handlebars of a bike, but in this scenario, the full crossovers go over a pipework. The handlebar crossover goes over a piece of wood, trunking or steps, in attics or on the floor somewhere, maybe on a wall. It incorporates roughly 4 45-degree bends, but we will start on the 2 top bends again, like we did with the full crossover. So the first thing I do is I get my piece of pipe, cut to length, I measure the centre. This will become clear as we continue. So the pipe is 650 long, so that's 325 to the centre. And put a small mark so we can see it. That will be our centre line, with the centre line going over the block of wood that we've got on the board. The next thing we do is, on each edge of the piece of wood, you want to come 20 millimetres in this case, on either side. I'm going to guess it. Obviously, if you're putting pipe insulation or anything else on the pipe, you'd have to adjust that size accordingly. Now I've marked 20 mils either side of the piece of wood. I'm going to transfer that line right round the pipe, because when we go to the bending machine, we'll be flipping the pipe over a couple of times, and that mark will help us on both cases. So now, the first bend. As a plumber, I would pick out maybe a 45-degree angle, or roughly, to move down and then come along. We're going to start off, again, with the 2 bends at the top. Again, the size we want to keep will always go on the hook side. And I'll put that first mark between the 1 and the 5, the fixed point, like we've done on the previous offset and the full crossover. I'm going to bend it around to 45 degrees, which is a bit there. Now I want this angle to be the same. So the best thing I'll do is, behind the arm on the pipe bender, I will put a mark and an arrow to show me that that's what I want to bend the next side to, which means these 2 angles will be exactly the same. I'll bring the pipe out, and now this is why I put the mark right round the pipe. I've got to flip the pipe over. It goes back in the machine. The mark goes between the 1 and the 5. I put in the guide. I make sure it's level or running in the same direction as a bending machine, and then bend it round to the mark that I've got where I put the arrow, which is round about there. And now these 2 angles are roughly the same, and the same distance from the centre line. The next mark I want to do is the distance down. Now I can, because I've got the block of wood, I can put that on there, and I get my straight edge, and I can line it up. I bring the straight edge towards the bottom of the wood, and the top of the wood is on the underside of the pipe. I can take that out, but I want to make sure it's straight. So what I can do is, like I did with the full crossover, I measure from the centre line up to the first mark, which is 70 millimetres, and I can do the same down the other side, and that happens to be 65. Move it out 5 millimetres. That's 70 millimetres now. Again, hold the ruler and mark across the pipes. Then, again, on the very top, mark it, an X. So now I've got 2 X's. Again, if I look at the machine and put it in that way, the size I want to keep is the first 2 bends. I'm bending it on a big U. So I want to use the other side like that. I put that in the machine, I bring the hook up onto the size I want to keep and drag the X back to the wheel. I put the guide in, which will hold it. And then I use my straight edge again, and I go from the previous mark that I put on the board across the wheel on the line. I use that as my guide. Again, I make sure the pipe's roughly level and bend it straight. That's the 3rd bend done. So now I've completed half of it. It's like that now. And again, the mark is on the wrong side of the pipe. So I put it in the machine this way, I bend it round again on a big U. So what I want to do is put it back on the board, I hold that flat down, the other end of the pipe sticks down over the board, get my pen, hold it with my hip, and I draw a line across. And then at the very top, I put an X on it again. Again, if that line's higher or lower, it doesn't matter. That's our new mark. That's the one we're going to go off of. It should be within 5mm. Again, size I'm going to keep goes in the bender. I bring the X back to the curve of the wheel. I put my guide in, put the arm across so it holds it. Make sure it's roughly level. In line with the straight edge onto the curve, and then bend it round in line with the ruler. And now, I'm just going to check it on the bench. I take it out, I make sure both edges are touching. I can see one end's a bit high, and that end, again, hold it flat, give it a small squeeze, make sure they're flat throughout, put it in the clips, and obviously the block goes back in the middle, and there we have your handlebar crossover. Full crossover, handlebar crossover.